Hey guys, it's Julian. Today I'm going to be talking to you about why your music isn't good enough and giving you 4 concrete tips that you can do today that will change your music forever for the better. To go along this video, to make your best stuff, you need the best sounds, and they exist on my website, electronicsamples.com. The link to that is at the top of the description. Everything is a very accessible or an affordable price, and it allows you to really get in and get some very, very high quality sounds, again, in a very accessible way. And yeah, it's all down there. You can also get my lessons, track finishing, and ghost production. That's another great way to really take your career to the next level. Link for that is in the description. Thank you so much for the support, guys. It really helps. I put a lot of time in on this channel, and you guys supporting is what helps keep me going so I can keep helping you guys. So yeah, thank you so much for the support. Let's dive in. So the first tip that I've noticed for a lot of people as to why their tracks aren't as good as they could be is, simply put, the kick and bass are bad. When we're talking about dance music or techno or house or anything like that, the kick and bass really makes up a lot of what you're hearing. Especially this is what I learned when I started making techno, is how much that kick and bass are really filling up the spectrum. And it's the same thing with house, and it's really the same thing even if you think about pop music or hip hop or rock or something like that. I mean, obviously a lot of emphasis is put on singers or is put on synthesizers and dance music or samples or whatever. But really, that kick and bass are so much of what you're hearing that, if you can just really focus on learning how to do that really well, your tracks will instantly just go up to here. Because, again, so often that's what I hear that's wrong. And it's the other drums can be there's a lot that can be done with that, right? And the synths, a lot that could be done that couldn't necessarily be good or bad. It's really the other stuff around it that will make it good or bad. And I think that having a really solid kick and bass is the first thing you can do to ensure that everything else in your track is going to sound good, and just overall your tracks are really going to improve. And also, I've got some great templates for that on my website. So that kind of leads me into my second point here, which is really not understanding how to put it all together. And what I mean by that is kind of the kick and bass thing is a lot of people will focus on different things, maybe focus a lot on making synths or focus a lot on making different other drum sounds or whatever. And it's I think that's a symptom of the problem of basically just not understanding how it all really goes together, and not understanding what I was saying before, for example, how big that kick and bass are for the track and how important that's got to be and how much emphasis you need to place on that. If you understand oh, this track is working because it's this groove between kick and bass, and then there's some percussion and stuff like that grooving off of that, you can really much more effectively put the whole track together, because at the end of the day it's basically just executing an idea, right? And you need to understand how it all works. So the way that you get that is just by studying tracks, and really listen. That's how I realized what I was saying about the kick and bass and the drums being so important, is just listening to tracks and thinking what am I actually hearing? You say you want to make techno, listen to some techno and actually just try to pick apart the elements. I mean, especially with dance music, it's easy because it's usually pretty simple, and you'll realize I'm really only just hearing kick, bass, hi-hat, and one synth, in a lot of cases. And maybe even more than that, but still, it's very simple. And I think if you study that, you'll understand how to put it all together, and you will get stuck a lot less. And that also leads me into my next point I was kind of talking about a moment ago there, which is focusing on the wrong things, Again, and I was guilty of it too. I think we all do it when we're learning how to produce, but it's sometimes you might want to focus a lot on sound design, making bass sounds or making lead sounds or something like that, or synthesizing hi-hats or something like that. And it's do your kick and bass sound good? Like I was saying, do your drums sound good? No? Well, then you shouldn't really be focusing on those things. And maybe if you want to put time in, let's say you just really like making white noise effects or something like that, and you want to just put some time in doing that, you can. But when it comes to making a track, get that kick and bass really good, get the drums really good, get that working, and then you can focus on anything you want, But you just really need to know what to really go in on. And again, it's all these little things that are gonna help you make better tracks. And then the last thing that I think could really help a lot of people is better starting sounds. You know, a lot of people, and this is something I had to learn, like really, really had to learn. You guys don't even know. It's like, you know, a lot of times we think, oh, well, I'll just start with like whatever kick or maybe like this kick sample that's all right, but you know, later we can beef it up with compression or saturation or drum bus or something. And it's like, nah, you can't do that. Like, that never works because that usually, like, when I hear people say they have a hard time getting kicks right or getting, you know, different things right, it's usually because they're taking the wrong sound. Like, they're taking, like I said, like a kick that is too weak or something or just not quite right and thinking that you can do all this stuff, you know. When it comes to, like, sound design, like, let's say you're trying to, like, do something crazy with filtering and distortion and, like, a long chain. That can work on, like, sound design. But when it comes to, like, these, you know, main sounds that are really going to make or break your track, like the kick, the hi-hats, you know, like, the main drums like that, you really just got to start with something really good and then, like, kind of bring that into the track rather than start with something that you're like, I'll clean it up later, and then trying to clean it up never works, or trying to beef it up. I mean, you can add maybe like 10%, but you really need a sound that's like 90% at the bare minimum of what you need it to be. I really think this is important because you could have the best techniques, you could know every single kick, you know, processing technique in the world, but if you just don't have good sounds, you're going to waste a lot of time. I did it for sure for a few years. And I think, you know, that wasted time serves a purpose as well because then when you do figure out what to do, and luckily you have me to tell you all the lessons that I learned here, but when you do figure out what to do, you know, those lessons of doing it wrong for so long, that just pushes you to, like, never go back, right? Like, I'm never going back to that, that's for sure. And I'm trying to tell you guys, just start with some really, really high quality sounds, and you will get moving a lot faster, and this process will just come together. And that's really what the pros do. I think they're just pros at really putting together good sounds. And if you want to get the best sounds to start with, the link is at the top of the description, electronicsamples.com. I'm telling you guys, I put a ton of time into building all these great sounds for you to have just some really, really high quality stuff to make the best music of your life. Link is at the top of the description. Thank you so much for the support, everybody. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you tomorrow with another one.